Welcome to APCUG Saturday Safari, where we travel down the vine-covered paths of technology, trying to find that big golden statue or something. Today, we're going to have a good presentation by Alan German from the Ottawa PCUG group. It's August. 2 months from now, it's October. And as many of you Windows 10 users know, there's a deadline coming. Alan's going to be sharing with us today what that all means to you and what options you have. So I'm going to turn things over to Alan and have him tell us about Windows 10 end of life and what that means for us.
Okay, thank you very much, John, and good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, we're going to talk about Windows 10. It reaches end of life, as John said, in just 2 months now. And so the question is, what are we going to do about it? And we'll take a look at various things that we can and can't do. This is kind of redundant in terms of this presentation because Judy will be sending out the deck after the session. But if you want to download it, you can get it from my club's website with this URL here. And certainly, if you have any questions after today's presentation, that is my email address. I'm always happy to hear from people, and I'll try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. Okay, right on then to end of life. The actual end date is October the 14th. And basically what that means is, for most of us, that there will be no more Windows updates, which means you get no security patches. In other words, there will be no updates on Patch Tuesdays anymore for Windows 10. You'll get no driver updates, which is basically hardware related. Microsoft won't be sending out any new features for Windows 10. And if you had been contacting Microsoft directly for technical support, then that also finishes on that particular date, October the 14th. Now, here's an interesting computer fact. It turns out that October the 14th is International E-Waste Day. So we're in a situation here where potentially millions of computers, quite literally, there's all kinds of computers still running Windows 10. And lots of them may be consigned to the great electronic waste heap. So it's a very interesting coincidence, I hope, that Windows 10 end of life happened to coincide with International E-Waste Day. And that's been in place for a long time. So it's not as though somebody developed that just to give Microsoft a black eye. Okay, so what can you do? I first gave this presentation a year ago to the library in Ottawa here, and I was pointing out that you didn't need to panic because you had a whole year to think about things. Well, you really still don't need to have to panic. I mean, you've got 2 months, which is a long time in computer history. I mean, computers are running at the level of nanoseconds, so 2 months is a pretty long time. And if you're running Windows 10 right now, everything continues as normal. You still get your security updates until we reach October the 14th. However, you really should be thinking about what you want to do, maybe before the actual curtain drops, as it were. If you have a fairly new computer, you're likely to be able to update to Windows 11. And personally, why not? If your machine will update to Windows 11, then probably you should go for it. And you could just keep using Windows 10 and do absolutely nothing. Just keep using Windows 10 as you always have. And that may not be the brightest idea in the toolbox. And you could initially you could purchase extended support from Microsoft, and we'll talk about the extended support program. And there are also third parties who are providing extended support. Now, both of those originally were a cost item. And then the final thing, if your computer won't run Windows 10, you don't want to go through this extended update process, then you probably have to buy a new computer, because new computers will come with Windows 11 pre-installed. However, there's another option, and it's an option that I personally favor, and that's trading up to Linux. And we'll talk a little bit about Windows 10 and Linux going forwards, and as you'll find out, that's going to be my preferred solution. Now, those options are not all down to me. If you follow Dave Plummer, who's a retired Microsoft software engineer, on his YouTube channel, he had this video called Windows 10 is Dead and What You Need to Know. And his analogy was, if you keep running Windows 10, it's like standing on ice, and the ice starts to crack, and eventually something's going to fall through, and that's probably not a good thing. This video is quite well rounded. He doesn't really take sides. He gives you all the options and talks about the pros and cons of everything. And then the other person I follow quite a bit on YouTube is Christopher Barnett. He's a retired computer science lecturer from the UK, and he has this channel called Explaining Computers. And he has some really good videos, a very interesting presentation style, very British humor, and kind of a deadpan type process, but a lot of really good information and really well delivered. And he had this video just recently, a couple of weeks ago, in fact, 4 months to go, and basically talks about all of the options that I'm going to talk about today, with some more detail in certain parts. One of the slides he had I thought was quite interesting. He's looking at the usage of Windows 10 and Windows 11 over time, and this is based on statistics from websites gathering the machines and the operating systems that are making contact. And you can see early on, it was probably 60-40 or something, or maybe even more than that, 70-30 maybe. But recently it's kind of, the gap's quite narrow. But even now, like a month ago, 53% of the people were using Windows 10, and only 40% were using Windows. Sorry, that's what it was about a month ago. It was 53-43. Now it's narrowed even more, so it's more like 50-50, because a lot of people signed up for Windows 11 apparently in June. But that still means that literally millions of computers are still running Windows 10, and I'm sure not all of them are going to be able to be updated to Windows 11. Here's Christopher's list of various options, everything from do nothing to buy a new machine and eventually to go over to Linux. And he has the pros and cons, and he talks all about those things. Anyway, let's think about the situation that we have. The first thing we have to decide is, well, can I actually update my machine or my machines to Windows 11? And Microsoft says that there are minimum system requirements, which I'm sure everybody knows about probably. And the other thing that's interesting, they say that Microsoft does not recommend installing Windows 11 on a device that doesn't meet these requirements. So I'm not quite sure what that means. I mean, they clearly don't want you to do it. The question is whether if you can do it. There are all kinds of workarounds to do that. The question is, will it always work going forwards, or is Microsoft going to change things in the meantime? And if you're in that band of people who can upgrade to Windows 11, the situation is pretty straightforward. If you haven't already been bombarded with adverts to do it, if you go to the Start menu and Settings, go to Update and Security, Windows Update, and check for updates, then it will tell you exactly how to do it. It will probably take you to this web page right here where you can actually download Windows 11 and install it on your machine. Now that's fine, but what about the rest of us? People like me, who has 3 or 4 computers, none of which are terribly new, and none of them will support Windows 11. And so, we're seeing this warning in the Windows Update screen. Check the hardware requirements, see if you can run Windows 11. And when you go and look, you'll find there's a whole bunch of system requirements, memory and CPU and disk storage and so forth. But the easiest way to check is in this little link right here where it says load the PC Health Check app. So if you do that, then it will ask you to download the app, so you can do that. And then it comes as an MSI file, which is installable. So you're actually installing this program on your system. You have to accept the terms of their license agreement, and then you can install the program. And just like regular Microsoft installations, it will run through a bunch of stuff, and eventually you will get there. And if you finish, then by default, you open the Windows Health Check application. And so this is the kind of main window. And one of the things it can do is it can do that second check now, see if it's available. And this is running on one of my machines, and you can see that it doesn't meet the Windows 11 system requirements. And you can do things like learn more or see all the results or whatever, but my problem is TPM has to be enabled. I don't seem to have that. TPM not detected, and the processor isn't supported, and here's my processor, so that doesn't bode well. I can look about the TPM and find out more about enabling the TPM if there is one. And it basically says that most PCs, if they're less than 5 years old, they should have a TPM, and you should be able to enable it. Again, going back to Dave Plummer and his YouTube videos, here's a video where he talks all about the TPM, and especially why Microsoft is insisting that a TPM is used with Windows 11. It's basically a security feature. Microsoft has decided that they're going to apply that, and we have to live with that decision. The other thing my other problem is the CPU. So I need to find out about the supported CPUs. And if I do that, I come to this list here, and I have an option to go to a list of approved CPUs. So I can check on that. And you can see here there's a bunch of Windows editions and AMD and Intel processors. Those are the ones that most people will use. And I need to get further down, so I need to expand the table. And now you can see that there's still even more options right here. Well, basically, we need to find out what version of Windows 10 we're running. Because you can see there's all kinds of different versions, build numbers, etc. So let's go on to Windows, go to System, go to Settings and System, and the About option, which is this guy down here in the left-hand corner. So if we do that, we can see that it lists our computer, and in particular, it lists the processor. So you can see that I've got an i7-4510U CPU, and it also lists the Windows version. So I'm running Windows 10 Home, and I'm running version 22H2. So those are the two critical things that we need to know. Windows 10 Home and that version 22H2. But basically Windows 10 Home, and then this i7 processor 4510U is the magic number. Let's go back to the table and we run down the options here for Windows 10 until we get to Windows 10 22H2. So that is my operating system. And I've got an i7, Core i7, which is an Intel processor. So I need to go to this list of supported Intel processors. Right, so they're all listed from the less performant CPU to the most, and here's the midpoint, if you like, between the Core i5 and the Core i7 series. So what I need to do now is scroll down to find 4510, and you can see that I have a little problem. It jumps from 14700 to 5500, so there is no 4710. So clearly, my CPU really isn't supported by Windows 11. It's not on the approved list. I'm going to go about that a different way. You can go into that list, and if you hit Control F, which is find, so Control and F, and then that pops up this window. Type in the name, and you can see that 00. So that CPU is not in that particular list. All right, so let's go back here and check out all the results on this PC health check. I found my problem, but here's some of the other things. My computer does support secure boot. I've got lots of memory. I've got lots of hard drive space. I've got at least 2 processor cores. So I've got all the other things basically it needs. I'm just missing this CPU and the TPM. So if I do the learn more, again, I'm told, well, this PC, my PC, will not run Windows 11. All right, so now I am in this boat. I'm in this boat with all you people who are running Windows 10, who can't upgrade their machines to Windows 11. So we're the guys that have to really think hard about what we're going to do. So you remember the options. We can just keep using Windows 10 as if nothing had happened. We can buy extended support from Microsoft. We can buy extended support from a third party. I could buy a new computer with Windows 11. I hate to do that because my computer works quite well. And I'll talk about that later on. I really don't want to just throw it away into the e-waste, especially when I've got 3 or 4 computers. They're all in the same boat. That's not really a viable option to buy 4 new computers. Or I could trade up to Linux. But the question is, which one is best? And we're going to go through the options, but you have to decide which of these options is best for you, for your particular purposes, the way that you use computers, and the way you want to use computers in the future. So can we keep using Windows 10 as usual? Now you remember that this was not recommended by Microsoft. It's actually not recommended by me. I can't see myself just running Windows 10 with this. There's basically no security. Right? We're going to have no to few security updates in the process. For example, is Windows going to update Defender? At the time I did this slide, I wasn't sure, but it turns out now that they've said that they're going to provide updates for Windows Defender through 2028. So that's not really an option, but you're not getting security patches, remember. There's no technical support. There'll be no troubleshooting available. And your computer is going to sit on the internet, if you let it, and it's going to be vulnerable to attack. And I can imagine that all the hackers in the world are feverishly trying to figure out how they're going to break into all these computers that are still running Windows 10. Now, that's not to say it's going to be a huge problem. I mean, we know, for example, there's lots of people still running machines on Windows 7, and you don't hear about the world collapsing because of it, but it's certainly an issue, and it's something that you should seriously consider. in the long term, what's going to happen in terms of hardware and software support? Things will change. New drivers may come along. Developers will change their software. They're probably going to look only to Windows 11. They're probably not going to look back to supporting Windows 10. So they may move on, and we may be left behind. And also, because of things like that, system performance may go down as time goes by too. And those are all things that Plummer, Dave Plummer, talks about in his first video. Here's the blog posting from Microsoft saying that they're going to support Defender through October 28. So that shouldn't be a concern for people. Second thing we can do is just install Windows 11 on the machine that doesn't really support it. And if you look on the web, all kinds of people will tell you how to do that. Again, if you remember, Microsoft doesn't recommend doing that. And a lot of the same problems with running Windows 10 apply to running Windows 11 when it's not supported. Are you always going to be able to get security updates and antivirus patches as time goes by? And certainly Microsoft, if they don't recommend it, they're not going to support it. So don't expect any answers if things go wrong from Microsoft themselves. And again, because it's unsupported, hardware and software compatibility may be a problem. So for my take, this is one of the kind of great unknowns of the Windows 10 story. Personally, I'm not in favor of doing that. I've never tried to install Windows 11, and I don't intend to because I have another option. Here's this extended security update, the ESU program. This is a Microsoft program which they announced a little while ago. To enroll in the program, you must be running the latest release of version 10, which is version 22H2. And there haven't been any feature updates since then, and Microsoft say that there won't be. So if you aren't running Windows 22H2 and you want to go to the extended security update program, then you need to update your Windows 10 to this latest version. Now, it extends support, but it's not full support. It only provides security updates for Windows 10. And there will be no new features announced or released. And if they find bugs, they're not going to fix bugs. Well, again, there's going to be no online or phone technical support, even though you've enrolled in this ESU program. And the real catcher, it's only an option for the next year. So if you go for ESU right now, you're going to be in the same boat that you are right now a year from now, because Windows 10 and its extended support will reach end of life in October of 2026. Originally, the ESU program was available at a cost of $30 US. That's you. I'm in Canada, so $30 is like $795 Canadian, I think, or something like that. Maybe a bit less than that. And at the time I wrote this, program enrollment was going to be close to the end of support. Somewhere close to October, they announced it was going to be in mid-August. I haven't seen it yet. However, recently they've updated these options, and there are now a couple of actual free options. So you can still buy the $30 US dollars extended support, but you can get it free. Remember, it's free for 1 year only, but you can get it free if you opt to synchronize your settings, your PC settings, to Microsoft Cloud Service. Or alternatively, you can cash in 1,000 Microsoft reward points, which you probably don't know that you have any, or you may have some, you may not have some. But clearly, one option that's free is synchronizing your PC settings with Microsoft. So, again, I just remind you that even this extended support is only good through October of 2026, so it's only 1 year. There are now these 2 free options, and the neat thing is, if you enroll in the program, it's not just for one computer. It's tied to your Microsoft account. You have to have a Microsoft account, and almost certainly everybody does. If you don't, you can certainly get one. They're free. So the extended support is tied to your Microsoft account, but it gives you licenses to apply the extended support to up to 10 machines. So that's actually a really good option. So it says enroll now, but this is from the Windows Insider program. It's actually supposed to be released almost any time. And I haven't seen it. I haven't heard of anybody who's seen it, who's a regular user. But it should be coming out fairly soon. Going back to Christopher Barnett, this is an even more recent video from maybe 2 weeks ago, where he talks about this process of setting up the extended support and the free options. And basically, he is a member of the Windows Insider program who got kind of an early preview of this ESU program. So he goes through the various techniques for doing that, including the syncing your PC. And what he points out there is people are reluctant to share things with Microsoft. But basically, all you need to do here is log into Microsoft with a Microsoft account, share your settings with the cloud server, go back into your computer and switch back from the Microsoft account to your local account. And the enrollment notice is still being displayed. So you are enrolled. All you've done is just share these PC settings one time, if you like, with Microsoft. So that is certainly an option. However, it's worthwhile checking your Microsoft Rewards point total. I took a look at this, and if you go to the website here, rewards.bing.com, you basically log in with your Microsoft account, and lo and behold, I had 800 points, which I didn't know about. I've never normally tried to gather Microsoft Reward points. I think what's happened there is I sometimes use Bing as an image search engine. And I think when I'm using Bing in that manner, I am accumulating these Microsoft points. That's the only thing I can think of. So I've got 800 points, but if you remember, I need 1,000 points to be able to enroll in this program for free using this reward point option. So we need to scroll down this guy a bit and see how we can get some more points. And you can probably see here that, for example, you could learn a new recipe and that would get you 10 points. And if you want to go out for the evening, you could look for a restaurant that will get you 20 points. And if you scroll down even further, you might find this guy, which was available when I logged on, that if I were to download the Bing app, the actual app, onto say my smartphone, then I'd be able to claim 500 points as a new user of the Bing app. Well, 500 points plus 800 points knocks me right over the 1,000. So this for me is a good option. However, not quite that easy. You certainly have to download and install the app. You have to use a Microsoft account to do that. And then the next thing is you actually have to use it to search. But you only have to search for 2 days within a couple of weeks using this app. And once you do that, once you've completed these 2 searches using this app on some kind of smart device, a phone or a tablet, then you get your 500 points. And sure enough, I now have 1,300 points. So I'm basically good to go once they announce this enrollment program is available for regular users. So I certainly encourage you to at least check that, see if it's available for you if you're interested in the ESU program. Now, another option is to just buy security updates from a third party. And one of the options is a company called Zero Patch. And this is a European organization. And what they say is that they identify problems and then they develop these so-called micro patches. And they install some software, this Zero Patch agent, and once it finds a micro patch available, then it installs it on your computer. Same kind of requirement for the version of Windows. Has to be the latest release, 22H2 version. And they say that their patch is going to be scheduled for availability once end of life comes along, so somewhere in October or around about there. Now, this is a bit more expensive. It's 25 euros, which I think that's $37 Canadian. So you'd have to work out what 25 euros is in US funds, and that is per year. So it's a subscription-based process, but I think the idea is they're going to keep doing this for several years. So it's not just a one-year shot. You pay the money and then you get the patches. The problem I see, potential problem is, am I going to trust a non-Microsoft organization that doesn't have access to the Windows source code to develop patches that are going to fix Microsoft's program? They say they can do it, but it's it's a fairly expensive proposition to find out that it does or it doesn't work. So again, to me, this is an unknown. I really don't know anything about Zero Patch other than those few thoughts right there. All right, so another option, just get the checkbook out and just buy a new computer. Certainly now, if you do that, it's a brand new computer. Windows 11 is going to be installed by default, so you don't have that issue to deal with anymore. However, it is a non-cost, it's a cost option. You certainly have to go and buy a computer, and then you have some issues like, is all your old software going to be compatible with Windows 11? Probably it will be, so that's probably not a real issue. And then the other thing is kind of ethically, I guess, what are you going to do with the old machine? Do you just send it to e-waste? Sounds an awful waste, if you pardon the pun, when your computer may be quite serviceable still, and you've just got a somewhat older CPU than is supported, and you can't run Windows 11 on it. Kind of unfortunate, but certainly that's if you got the dollars to spend, then that's certainly a viable option to fix the Windows 10 end of life problem. And then the final option I mentioned was training up to Linux. And everybody who hasn't used Linux, all you Windows-only users out there, you're wringing your hands and pounding your head on the table saying, no, Linux is hard. It's only for geeks. Well, no, it isn't. It used to be a bit more complicated, but these days it's actually just as easy to use as Windows. And say Linux is hard to learn. Well, again, if you choose the right distro, the right distribution of Linux, it turns out it looks a lot and feels a lot like Windows anyway. People say, well, you have to use the command line. Again, that's an old-time myth. You never did have to use the command. Well, I guess sometimes you did, but you don't have to do it very often. If you do have to do it, most things in modern Linux distributions use GUIs, graphical user interfaces. So they have desktops just like Windows, icons just like Windows, a taskbar just like Windows, except it's called a panel. And the look and feel is very similar. And then they say, well, the applications are different. Well, certainly some are. But in my experience, they work just as well if not better than some of the Windows apps. Some of them are the same, depending on what applications you're using. I mean, for example, if you didn't buy Microsoft Office, you may be using LibreOffice. And LibreOffice has both a Windows version and a Linux version. And it also has a Mac version, I think. So in that case, Writer and Calc and Impress, they're exactly the same applications, well, almost the same. There are some slight differences on the different platforms, but basically they're the same. And there are a lot of applications like that, free and open source applications, which are available on multiple platforms. And then the final thing is some of the Windows programs that you're running right now on Windows 10 will actually run on Linux. Now, you have to use special software to make them do that, but it is possible. So the question is then, well, what's Linux? Well, it's a free operating system and it's open source. One of the neat things is that you download it as a so-called distro, a distribution, and this distro comes bundled with a whole bunch of applications. And it's not like buying I haven't bought a Windows computer recently, but last time I bought a Windows computer, there were a bunch of applications bundled, but it was a bunch of junk that I didn't want and had to uninstall. Well, Linux is different. Linux installs applications which are truly useful. And Linux is actually easy to install. It's just like installing Windows. There's a wizard that takes you by the hand and runs you through the process. It's also easy to use because, as I say, you can set up icons and icons on the desktop, icons in the panel, and run things. And there's a menu system, almost like Windows 7, actually. But there is a learning curve. Linux is not Windows, so you have to bear that in mind and learn how to use it. Again, if you choose the right distro, then the desktop environment can look very much like Windows. Another really important thing, I think, is that you can run Linux and Windows in dual boot mode. So you can have both operating systems running on the same computer. And when you power up the machine, you get a boot menu and you can choose, do I want to go into Linux or do I want to go into Windows? Now, for me, when I first started, that's exactly what I did. I ran, and I still do. I still run everything in dual boot mode. By default, I normally go into Linux, but if I want, I can go into Windows. So what you can do, you run Linux, and when something doesn't make any sense, something breaks, you can't do something you want, you still can exit out of Linux, boot into Windows, do what you need to do, and then go back and start learning how to run Linux properly. My default is and when you install Linux, this is the default or an installable distro, it will boot by default into Linux. Most of the applications that come with a distro, you may find that those are perfectly sufficient for your needs. But it's very easy to get additional applications, and we'll talk about that shortly. And I said earlier that a lot of Windows programs will run on the Linux, and again, I'll talk about how to do that. Now, my option is going to be, because I can't upgrade to Windows 11 and I don't want to buy a new machine, and I am running dual boot anyway, my option is going to be, I'm going to run Linux by default all the time for my so-called normal usage. If I need to run some specific Windows application, and I do have one application for which there is no Linux version, and it will not install on Linux to run on the Linux. So the only way to run this thing is on a Windows platform. I could use virtual machine, but my preference is to dual boot. So I just boot into Windows, run my Windows application. And what I will do, because it's Windows 10 and it's not supported, I'll take Windows 10 offline. So I'll turn off its access to the internet. so the bad guys, the hackers, won't be able to get to my Windows 10 side of my machine. All right, let's talk about how can you get Linux. I'm going to suggest you use Linux Mint, and the reason for that is because it's probably the most popular distro that is most like Microsoft Windows. What I do is create a bootable USB drive. You could use a DVD if you have an optical drive, but a bootable drive is easy, and you can reuse it if you decide Linux really isn't for you. You boot the computer into Linux from the USB, so you're running Linux from this USB. It hasn't touched your computer in terms of the hard drive. You haven't changed anything on your computer's hard drive. You're running Linux directly from the bootable USB drive. But what that lets you do is check the hardware compatibility. So you may find out that there are no problems, or you may find out there are problems. But at least it gives you a chance to check before you go any further. You have a full installation essentially, so you can certainly check out all of the applications that came bundled in the distro. So if you haven't used Microsoft LibreOffice Writer, then you could fire up LibreOffice Writer and see how close it is to Microsoft Word, for example. You can check out the Firefox browser if you've only used Chrome or Edge or something, and see how closely Firefox relates to your browser of choice. And then once you've decided that, oh yes, it looks as though Linux is going to run okay on my machine, then you install Linux on a hard drive now, and you arrange for it to be dual booted with Windows. So now you have this grub menu, which is a boot menu. When you power on the machine, you get to the grub menu, you can choose, do I want to go into Linux or Windows? And then if you want to run Windows programs, then you need this application called Wine, or another application called Play on Linux, which are apps designed to run Windows programs directly on the Linux system. And here is a Linux Mint desktop. You can see it has a background, a wallpaper, very black, but you can see it looks very much like Windows. There's a whole raft of icons all scattered around the desktop. There's a taskbar, which again, Linux actually calls a panel, running along the bottom of the screen here, again with a bunch of icons, and a start menu button on the left side here. And you may notice that I'm actually running Microsoft Word. This is a Word document running in Microsoft Word on a Linux desktop. So this is Microsoft Word running on Linux. Now, I'm a big fan of telling people exactly how to do things. And this is my Linux North blog. And it's one of the tips, how to run Linux Mint from a live USB. So this is a full set of instructions on how to download and run boot the USB drive and check out all the different applications and so forth. So you'll find that there's text and there's pictures and there's links and everything you should need to know to be able to run Linux from a live USB, just to try it out. However, there are basically just 4 requirements. I see this slide is already out of date. Again, you need an ISO file. And the ISO file, again, I'm going to suggest is Linux Mint, the Cinnamon edition, because again, the Cinnamon edition is the desktop, and that's the one which I think is the most like Windows. The slide here says version 22, and then it says the latest release is 22.1 Shia. The latest release is actually version 22.2 Zara, but it's only available right now as a beta release. But 22.2 will come on stream regularly very shortly, I think. It actually doesn't matter. They're very similar distributions. And if you happen to load 22.1, it's easy enough to upgrade it to 22.2. So you need the ISO file, you need to download that. You need a USB flash drive, and the flash drive has to be at least 4 gigabytes or larger. Because basically the distro is about 3.5 gig, it fits on a DVD, not a CD. So you need a 4 gig USB flash drive or something bigger, either a new one that's empty, or files that can be overwritten, because when you load the ISO file, it will actually overwrite any files which are already there. You also need software in order to flash the ISO file onto the USB drive in order to make it bootable. And I recommend a program called Balena Etcher. There are various USB writers available. This one is really simple, so it's a possibility. And then the final thing is, you've now got a bootable USB drive, but you need to know, how do I boot my computer using this USB drive? And I recommend you just search for Google, boot an Inspiron model 7510, whatever it was, from USB, and Mr. Google will tell you exactly how to do it. And I think I have a slide on that later anyway. Right, so this is the Linux Mint website, linuxmint.com, and it will show you whatever the current version is right here. It might be 22.1 or eventually 22.2. If you go to this download button here, then it will download, by default, it will download the Cinnamon edition. You can choose a different edition if you wish, different desktop. This is Balena Etcher, so this actually runs as a portable file. So you just have the software, you run the exe file, and it's basically a 3-step process. Tell me where the ISO file is, which file am I going to grab to write to the USB, select the USB drive that's plugged into your machine, and then basically write the ISO file to the USB to create a bootable USB drive. So that's Balena Etcher with the ISO file to install on the USB drive. Right, so here is, I think this is Google. I'm asking you, how do I boot a Dell Inspiron 15 from USB? And it says press F12. So you power on the machine, and as soon as the logo for the computer, the flash screen loads, then you hit F12 and it will give you a boot menu. Go down the boot menu and choose boot from the USB drive. And what that does is, when you boot from the USB drive, it loads Grub. And this is Grub. This is the Grand Unified Bootloader Menu, commonly known as Grub. And you can see you get all kinds of choices. By default, the top one says Start Linux Mint 22, Cinnamon 64-bit edition, which is exactly what we want to do, because we want to start it. So let's get going. And now we have to exhibit a little patience, mainly because we're booting from a USB drive, and that's probably much slower than what you're used to. If you're used to running from an SSD, for example, then trying to boot from your USB drive is going to be much slower. And the process, you see various black screens, and occasionally this green and white Mint logo shows up and then goes away again. But eventually, as I say here, the Linux desktop will eventually load in all its splendor. And here is Linux Mint in all its splendor. And you may notice one difference between Linux and Windows. Linux tends to be very minimalist, and you don't get a lot of icons and things to start with, but they're easy enough to add, as we will see. I talked about the start menu down in the bottom left-hand corner here. If we hit that guy, then this is the main menu. So we've now popped up the main menu. And if you remember back to Windows 7, it was something like this. This one has a bunch of favorites on the left here. That's Firefox web browser, for example. You've got a list of categories here. So you've got graphics and internet and office and sound. And then if you have, and this is showing all applications. So here, everything's listed by alphabetic order. We'll come back to that later on. You would play around with this if you just wanted to see if Linux was going to run well on your hard drive, or you wanted to try out some of these applications. And you start clicking on various things, loading things, and seeing how things work. Eventually, you're going to find out that, yes, Linux works just fine on my computer, and you want to install it. So now you have to go back to these icons. And if you look at this guy up in the top left-hand corner here, it says install Linux Mint. So let's double click on him, and that will actually launch this installation wizard, which I talked about. So now you get a series of dialog screens. Most of them want some kind of input. Usually it's just press continue or next or something. And most of the screens are pretty straightforward. I mean, for example, the first one here, the welcome screen, what language do you want to use? Well, for me, it's pretty obvious. I want to use English. That's actually the default. So I just hit continue and carry on. But some of the screens are a bit more involved, and some of them are not terribly Windows-like. So there's a couple of things we'll talk about specifically. However, once again, because of those, my need to tell everybody, give everybody chapter and verse on how to do things, I have another tip on how to install Linux in a dual boot mode. So again, this is words and screenshots and links and step-by-step instructions on how to go through that installation wizard. So if you have any problems or you want to be absolutely sure how to do it, I highly recommend you take a look at this web page. So here's one of the things which is pretty obvious, I think. It says, this is a wireless connectivity. Connect this computer to a Wi-Fi network, lets you install third-party software, yada, yada, yada. All right, so clearly you're going to want to connect your machine, your Linux machine, to the internet. So you say connect to this network. It gives you a list of all the available Wi-Fi systems that are around you. I'm going to choose this guy right here. And now, because it's password protected, I have to give it my passphrase to get in. Now, the important thing here is that not only does this give the Linux installer the ability to go out to the web and download updates, various files that it might need, giving it this access to the Wi-Fi network and the password basically sets that for all your future boot ups. So it's like establishing a default. Once you've entered this password, when you boot Linux, it will automatically connect to your Wi-Fi network and you don't have to worry about it. It's almost like magic. This one, all right, unmount partitions that are in use. Right? It says here that the installer has detected following disks have mounted partitions. And it says that the disk is /device/SDC. And this is very Linux speak. It's not Windows at all. And it's asking you, do you want the installer to try to unmount the partition because you may not be able to create, delete, or resize partitions? And the answers are yes or no. And you're scratching your head thinking, which one should I give? You need to look at my blog. Or I can tell you it actually doesn't make any difference. You can choose either or, and things will go just as fine as dandy. The reason is /dev means device. So a device. SDA is your hard drive on your computer. SDB, in my case, is a second hard drive on my computer. And SDC is actually the USB drive that we're using to install Linux on the system. So SDC is this bootable USB drive. Well, we aren't going to change partitions on that drive. We actually don't care. So we can say yes, unmount it, or no, don't unmount it, whatever you want. It actually doesn't matter. This is actually quite important. Now it's asking, where do you want me to install Linux on your hard drive, on your computer's hard drive, the solid state drive or the spinning hard drive that has your Windows system on it as drive C? If you were to choose the second option right here, erase disk and install Linux Mint, erase disk would blow away Windows completely. It's like starting with a completely blank disk. You probably don't want to do that if you're only just starting Linux. So the default option here, install Linux Mint alongside Windows Boot Manager. In other words, create a dual boot system, leave Windows where it is almost, and install Linux next to it. So I have the option to use both. That's clearly what we want to do. So let's just say install now. So now what it does is it goes out and looks at our hard drive and it says, well, you've got a 250 gig solid state drive and you're using about 175 gig of space basically for Windows. So you've got, what, 270, 75, let's say 80 gig. You've got 80 gig free, basically. That's not really doing very much. It's not used anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split that right down the middle. I'm going to give Linux Mint 40 gig, actually 38, and I'm going to shrink the Windows partition down. So instead of being, let's say 250, which it won't be exactly, but I'm going to shrink it down to just about 200. And now you're scratching your head and saying, well, is that enough? Well, of course it is. You got 25 gig, 35 gig pretty much free for Windows. You can always clean up some other space if you need more. And you got 40 gig for Linux Mint, which is lots and lots, believe me. And you could actually shrink that down a bit if you really wanted to. But we don't know what we're doing, so we're going to just leave it as the default. If we wanted to change it, we just take this slider bar and we'd shrink Windows down more, or we'd shrink Linux Mint down a bit more by moving it left or right. But let's take the usual course, which I do, just accept the default and see what happens. Because you can always change things, right? And I guess the first thing I didn't mention was, before you do this, it's probably a really good idea to make a full disk image backup of your entire system. If things go south, all you have to do is restore from that disk image and you're back to exactly where you were before you started. So I highly recommend making disk images, full disk images, as backups before you do major system changes. Anyway, let's just accept the default and we'll carry on. So now it's saying, where are you? And it's showing us a map and it's got this kind of zone here and a red dot. And it's saying, well, Toronto. And that's actually where my ISP is, my internet service provider. So it thinks I'm in Toronto. It actually doesn't matter. It doesn't really know where I want to be. I'm not going to try and find Ottawa because it turns out there is no entry for Ottawa. All it's really asking, and what it should say, is what time zone do you want me to use for the system clock? And if you notice there that zone that's outlined is actually the Eastern time zone, which is exactly what I want. So I can just say continue. All right, now this screen you have to pay a little bit of attention to. It's basically a bunch of questions. How do you want to configure the system? So I tell it, well, I want my name to be Alan. It's going to suggest a computer name, and you can change any of these boxes to anything you want. Right? So I told it my computer is going to be the i7 Inspiron, and I need to pick a username. This is my Linux username, and I choose Toaster. And the reason for that is because I had a friend who always used to argue that computers should be just like toasters. You should plug it into the wall and it should just work. And I always argued that that's exactly how computers are. You plug them into the wall and they just work. So I always use my username as toaster. And then you have to choose a password, and it's complaining that my password is weak, but I don't really care because I don't give anybody access to my computer. So, and they'll never guess that one anyway. It's password without the D. No, it isn't really. And then I leave these things down here as the defaults. The default is that I don't log in automatically, so it's going to use my user ID and password. In actual fact, it retains my user ID all the time, my username. It only asks me for a password. So every time I log in, it doesn't do it automatically. I have to enter a password. You don't want to do that, just check this radio tag. So I'm saying require my password to log in. And then finally, I leave this box unchecked. Don't encrypt my home folder. I have no interest in encrypting stuff and then finding out that I can't access it. So I turn off encryption. Again, all those things are preferences that only you know how you want to run your machine. All right, so eventually it will go through a whole bunch of welcoming screens and telling you how things work. And eventually you'll get to this option where you can continue testing, but you don't really need to do that because you did that when you used the live USB earlier. So now we can just go to this restart now. And that will bring up the boot menu and we'll get into, by default, remember we go into Linux. So now we're in Linux, we get to this main menu. So let's take a quick look at the main menu. We have all these different options. So if we were to choose one of those on the main menu, so for example, if we were to choose Office, then you can see that you get a calendar, you get a library application, which is recent files basically. And then this is the suite of LibreOffice applications. So you got Calc, which is the equivalent of Microsoft Excel, a spreadsheet. You got Draw, which doesn't have a Microsoft Office equivalent. You've got Impress, which is the PowerPoint version, the presentation manager, and Writer, which is the equivalent to Microsoft Word. So if I were to launch Writer, so here, you can see here that I have launched LibreOffice Writer, but I have loaded that same Word file, USB share.docx. I'm loading a Word docx file in LibreOffice Writer, and you can probably see it looks pretty much the same as it did in Word. It's got titles which are centered and bold-faced. It's got text in 10.5 point times Roman. It's got diagrams. It actually functions very much like Microsoft Word. So that's what I was saying. Some programs are the same, some work as well, or sometimes even better. If we were to go to the Internet tab, then we would have available the Firefox web browser. Everybody's probably heard about Firefox, just another web browser essentially, albeit open source, and Thunderbird Mail, which is an email client, which again, I highly recommend. I use this on, this is one of these cross-platform apps. So I actually use Thunderbird on Linux, I use it on Windows, and I use it on Android. So it's the same app essentially on all three platforms. One of the really neat things I like about Linux is the way that it does updates. I always hated Windows when it butted in and decided it had to do updates, or it had to restart like right now when I was trying to do something else. Linux doesn't work like that. When updates are available on the panel, remember the panel is really the taskbar, at the right-hand end of the panel, you find this shield icon. And when the shield icon has an orange dot next to it, that means that updates are available. And the way I do it is the updates are under my control. I decide when I want to install the updates. When I want to install the updates, I just double click on this icon. it pulls up the update manager and I can have a look. And there are three kinds of updates. You get security patches, which have a shield icon, very much like that. You have kernel updates. Remember, Linux is really the Linux kernel plus all these bundled applications. And that shows up as a lightning bolt. And then you have updates to software that is installed, and they show up as an up arrow. However, although it shows you all those things, my recommendation is when it shows you that updates are available, just install them all. I don't know which are good and which are bad. They've all been good so far, so I don't really worry about it. The thing is that these updates are all controlled by the Linux developers, so there's no reason to think that there's anything bad about them. Remember, everything's open source, so the source code for everything is being viewed by multiple people multiple times generally, and it tends to be secure. All right, so there's an indication. There is a security patch. Here's a kernel update, and here's a regular update to an installed program. You might notice here that I've got a ton of updates, 104 updates, and almost a gigabyte, which has to be downloaded. That's because this is immediately after installing Linux from a downloaded ISO file. So Linux has moved on since the ISO file was developed, and there's a bunch of updates available. That's actually very unusual, as I'll show you in just a second. However, because there's a kernel update, this other thing pops up which says the upgrades, it needs some more packages. There are a whole bunch of dependent packages which have to be installed, as well as all these things. So again, I just say, okay, go for it. You need them, you have them. This is much more typical. On a regular boot up, I might see there are some updates available. I'll take a look. There's a couple of updates available, 3 megabytes to download. Tell it to install the updates, and 17 seconds later, things are up and running. So updating is really a breeze. Most of the time, it doesn't want to restart. Sometimes when you get certain kernel updates, it will. But generally, updates are few and very rapid. What about if we wanted more software? In the Windows world, you go running around the web trying to find applications that might be of use to you, might be of interest to you. In the Linux world, things are curated. So the Linux developers have a suite of software which they store online in what they call repositories. And you use the software, you can use the software manager, which is an application, to access the available packages. So when the software you want is in the repositories, then the easiest way to do it is just use the software manager. If a package happens not to be in the repositories, then you have to go to the developer's website generally, and they will usually give you a package file. A deb file is a special kind of archive. You download the deb file, and then you just install that, and that installs the package of interest. And then the final thing is that dreaded terminal command. Sometimes you do have to install things using the command line interface, which in the command window in Windows or PowerShell. In Linux, it's called the terminal, and you give it commands, very similar to Windows, but somewhat different commands, I guess. The neat thing is that when you have an application like this, the developer usually gives you chapter and verse on enter this command, then this command, then this command, and your program's installed. So it's pretty simple, even though you need to use the terminal. So here's the favorite for the software manager, this kind of waffle icon here. And when you load it, you'll find that you get a bunch of featured applications and a bunch of categories down here. And one of the applications you probably know already from the Windows world is VLC. So if it doesn't come with the distro, then you can install it by clicking on this guy. Alternatively, you can go down to sound and video here, and VLC will be listed in this category. Or finally, if you know exactly what program you're looking for or part of it, you can just enter some text up here, and the software manager will search and try and find that program for you. And then you'll get to this screen here, and you have the install button. You just click on that guy. And again, it needs some dependencies here. So yes, we'll accept those, continue that, and it installs. And now notice that if I want to delete that program eventually, I can come back to Software Manager, and I have this remove option available. And so Software Manager lets you both install and uninstall third-party software or additional software. And here, sure enough, when I install VLC in the sound and video category, Linux automatically adds a link or a button that lets me run VLC. And here is VLC running. This is Chris Taylor, OPCUG's president, giving some kind of presentation here. This is the audio track from the presentation. So that's VLC in action. Right, so running Windows programs. I talked about wine. Linux and Unix people, they love their acronyms. And WINE is an acronym, a recursive acronym, well, it's an acronym anyway. It stands for WINE is not an emulator. So it doesn't actually emulate Windows computer hardware and Windows software. It basically acts as a compatibility layer. So it looks for Windows system calls or library calls and basically converts them to POSIX, which is the Linux equivalent for programming calls. So as far as we're concerned, it's basically just a way of running a Windows exe program and having Linux take care of the nuts and bolts for us. I also mentioned Play on Linux, and the reason for doing that is this is probably the easiest way to install various versions of Office. And this is one of these things that you download and install. Now, once you do download and install it, then you can search for Office, and you'll find that you've got a whole bunch of different versions of Office. Some of them are supported and some are not. I actually happen to have a copy of Office 2010, so I'm going to try and install Office 2010. And one of the things to note is that Linux isn't giving you a copy of Microsoft Office. It's just allowing you to install your copy of Microsoft Office. So you need to know the activation key for the software that you're installing. So you enter the product key to make things happen. And eventually it will tell you that Office has been installed successfully. And sure enough, it's installed some icons on the desktop here. And if I were to run Microsoft Word, yes, no, PowerPoint. If I were to run Microsoft PowerPoint, then again, this is the Linux desktop. You can see the Linux Mint logo down here. But this is a PowerPoint file. This is one of our question and answer sessions running in PowerPoint. But again, PowerPoint is running on Linux. And so I don't have to go to Windows to run PowerPoint. All right, so how are we doing in terms of overall? We've discussed the Windows 10 end of life. We know that that occurs on October the 14th of this year, so in 2 months from now, basically. We also know it's business as usual until then, so we still get all of the regular security updates. But things change after October the 14th. We looked at the options, updates to Windows 11 if you possibly can. Why not? Some people will probably have answers as to why not. I actually would if I could, but I can't. keep using Windows 10, not recommended. Purchase extended support or use that free extended support, that's recommended. And since they're going to extend Windows 10 for a year, why not? Even if you're thinking of trading up to Linux, it gives you another year to play around with it, make sure that it's exactly what you need. You could buy that third-party support from ZeroPact or somebody else maybe, but for me that's an unknown quantity. I wouldn't know how to do that. And you can certainly go out and just buy a new computer that has Windows 11 and will likely upgrade to Windows 12 and so on and so forth. Or you can do as I'm going to do and basically use Linux and Windows in dual boot mode. Use Linux most of the time for almost everything you need to do. And if you do need to run a Windows program in Windows, then you have the option to boot into Windows on your dual boot system. So those are all your options. Okay, so again, the presentation will be available from Judy. I haven't sent it to her yet, but I will later on this afternoon. If you do have any questions after the session, there's my email address, alan.german@opcug.ca. And right now we're in the any questions phase. So we're going to shut the presentation down, and Judy's probably got a few questions lined up already, and then we'll be open for more.
And you are correct. She is working on those. I would like to thank you for a very in-depth with a lot of options. I like options. While she's gathering, I will just make a notation that next month, since it'll be a follow-up, we are having a Learning Linux workshop on running Windows computers in Linux. A lot of people have been asking about that. So that will be in September. And then in October, we'll have an in-depth Learning Linux workshop on doing the dual booting of Windows and Linux. So you will be able to do some of the exact things that Alan's been talking about. So that's coming up in the next 2 months. And so, Judy, over to you for questions that I know you have.
Okay. How do I find out if the peripherals have drivers?
So how do you find out if peripherals have drivers? Use the live USB and see what happens. Typically, it will, for example, it will find your wireless card and connect, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. I am using ZeroPatch to provide security updates for a Windows 7 computer, and it seems to be working well.
Okay, good.
Good.
I don't know anyone that's using it, so it's good to hear that it seems to work.
And how about Rufus? To create
Rufus
a flash drive.
is another option like Berliner Etcher. The thing about Rufus is, like Berliner Etcher, it only does one distro on one USB. Another option is a program called Yumi, Y-U-M-I, which lets you install several distros or several operating systems on one USB drive. So it's a multi-boot USB drive. And there's another one that does the same thing called Ventoy, V-E-N-T-O-Y. Again, multiple boots on one USB. USBs are so big these days, it seems a pity to waste it on one operating system. So personally, I use Yumi and have several distros available on the one stick.
And he also said he's using Flex OS, the freely available Chromebook software from Google, on his old Windows 10 machine.
Okay, yeah. Flux OS isn't Linux, but it's a variant, I guess. Variant of Chrome OS.
Okay, how does Linux work on Macs?
It doesn't. Well, I shouldn't say it doesn't.
No.
I mean, presumably you could run Linux in a
somehow.
You could run Linux on a virtual machine on Mac. I imagine you could dual boot a Mac with Linux, but I really don't know. I have no experience with Apple products whatsoever.
I'll toss in and say that our group, we have somebody who does put Linux on a Mac, but part of it depends on the processor. And we have one that we can't do because we can't get past the password to change the BIOS in it. So it can be done, and once in a while it can't be done.
Okay, last week on my Windows 10 Pro computer, I tried to enroll in the ESU program for extending Windows 10 for a year. The system offered me a link to enroll now, but the system would not allow me to click on it. 3 exclamation points. When will this become available? Thanks.
I'm interested to know that somebody actually did get the offer to enroll. All I've heard is mid-August, whatever mid-August means. I mean, for me, mid-August is already gone.
Yeah, we're past mid-August. It's over there somewhere. Susan Rogers said her audio was breaking up. Did anybody else's audio do the same thing? Nope.
At least one person.
Okay. Mint Cinnamon 22.1 XIA is also a good choice to install on your iMac or MacBook when it can no longer receive updates.
Okay, so there you go. You can install Linux on a Mac.
John, does that work with whoever is using a Mac in your group?
As far as I know, we're just doing Linux Mint.
Okay, when we have our meeting, seniors computer group in 30 minutes, I believe that is the one down in San Diego with all the old people. Well, we're all old. I was hoping Safari would have been first in the meeting. How can I get the Safari slides? Your meetings are excellent. So thank you for that. But did I miss the fact that we're doing something on Safari?
Nope, that's just the name of our nickname of our workshop. I came up with that because it had the same beginning letter as S, and we were going to go touring. So I called it Saturday Safari.
I know, and I thought it was wonderful. Okay,
sorry that
I will chat with her afterwards, after their meeting is over with. Do we have other questions? Could you close the chat box, please?
And do.
Thank you. Oh, that was me. Be right back. Okay, Murray says, oh, that was the mint cinnamon. Okay. So you got that answered. Comment. Although I already know a bunch about this stuff, the presentation by Alan on how to install Linux was one of the clearest I have ever seen. I am sure that this will be helpful for those who want to extend the useful life of their hardware for years after it can no longer receive updates, or Apple, whichever the case may be, period.
And that's probably quite correct. Linux will run really well on old hardware. So going forward, it's probably going to run for a long, long time.
That's Murray Stone, so you can handle him. He's at the other end of Canada, all right?
Right.
He's in Victoria, over here somewhere. Come
A
on.
bunch of people with hands raised.
Since it seems you are. Okay, Sharon said, one moment. Oh, she would like me to get in touch with her about Safari. I will. John will write up something and I'll send it to her. Okay. Can Linux read files created by Windows?
Yes.
Yes. I can answer
It's a
that.
one-way street. Linux can see Windows partitions, but Windows refuses to see Linux partitions.
Oh,
What I do is I have a second partition on my system, which is a data partition. So all of my doc files and my Excel spreadsheets are in this data drive. I can access them from either Windows or Linux. It's exactly the same set of files, data files. Both platforms can read the same file.
Christopher Nance says, does Linux require periodic security updates?
Yes, and it gets them periodically. That's that process of the update manager that I talked about. I just look, it's obvious to me when there's an update available. I see this icon and I just click on it and install everything that's available. It's really easy.
Okay. Oh, Jill says, excellent presentation. Unfortunately, I have to leave now.
Bye, Jill.
Okay, it's been delightful. Okay, let me click on this again. Thanks so much for getting this presentation together. Look, all the things I'm not going to have to email you. It has been most helpful. Very good. But I want questions. How do you access the Windows drive from Linux boot to copy files?
What directions? Sorry, from the boot?
From Linux boot to copy
right.
file.
So you boot into Linux, and then you have a file manager, just like File Explorer, actually called Nemo. And by looking at the available disks, you'll find the Windows drives, either the C drive in Windows or my data drive in my case. And I can just click on that, just like in File Explorer, open up that drive and see all the files and folders in there. And then I just load whatever I want. It's basically transparent.
And just add that that's one of the ways that makes Linux so valuable for Windows people or people who are having problems that can't access their files. Linux can access their files without the necessity of password.
Linux has cute names for things because when he talked about Nemo, that's the one that's all about the fish and the names that go along with fish, correct?
Well, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, because the other software is called Nautilus.
Yes, okay. Search on the PC World website, GitHub, for Flyoobe for a brief review. Flyyoobe. And then somebody another time can tell us about it. All right. My last question. Which is better and why? Install Linux on a solid state drive or on a traditional hard drive?
On a solid state drive because it runs faster.
Okay. I hope that's what you were looking for, Lloyd. All righty, Paul, it is your turn. Would you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Excellent talk. A very good explanation of installing Linux. But I just wanted to clarify something on the extended updates. I thought you had to allow Microsoft to store all your files. So all you have to do is log into the Microsoft account and deny OneDrive your file access, and it'll still give you extended updates.
All you have to do is share the settings. If you look at that video from Christopher Barnett, the Explaining Computers guy, he actually goes through that process and shows you exactly how to enroll by doing the sharing. And because he's a Windows insider, he had access to the enrollment program before we do. and he goes through step by step and shows you how to do it. But all you have to do is share your settings, not any files.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. This was a great day.
Thank you.
Dorothy, you're on. Oops, I'm sorry, not yet. It's Rod's turn.
Oh, thank you. Just some information on the Mac. Rather than deal with the passwords and anything else the Mac people want to do, I simply put in a couple of Macs. I put in new hard drives, installed Linux Mint, and it worked fabulous. No problems whatsoever. Just information because somebody asked about Macs.
Yeah. The problem that we had was that the BIOS had a password on it, so we couldn't change it to boot to a Linux thumb drive to install. That was the big problem. It was the BIOS password that couldn't be bypassed.
Okay, I didn't have any BIOS problems.
You're one of those that didn't have any problems. Hooray.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
couldn't you use one of your little virtual things, John?
Oh, to put a virtual on that Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could, but you wanted to be able to run it because the Mac wasn't running right.
Okay. Dorothy, you are on.
Great presentation. Just a quick question. I have about 7 devices, laptops, computers with Windows 10 in a holding pattern here with what I want to do. Either just, I have a way to get rid of them. But so when you said that if I paid the $30 US or had 1,000 Microsoft points, it would apply to all machines?
Up to 10.
Yeah, up to 10.
So for
Yeah.
you, it would apply to all machines, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But let me clarify, doesn't every machine have to log into the same Microsoft account?
Yeah, I have them all in the same Microsoft account. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not sure about that, John. I don't think so. I think you log in with a Microsoft account to get the enrollment system somehow. And then how you apply it to 10 machines, I don't know. Well, that's what they say. You can apply it to 10 machines.
Mhm. My other observation is I know local computer stores are refurbishing computers that are maybe 4 to 5 years old and putting Windows 11 on, and they sell them to people. And I'm just curious with what you said that, you might not get all the updates properly if it's not a real Windows 11 computer.
Well, hopefully, if it's a commercial operation that's doing that, these are computers that will support Windows 11. Can't imagine a store using a machine that wouldn't support Windows 11.
Yeah, well, they won't, they're Windows 10 ones that won't update to Windows 11. So,
But they are updating them to Windows 11.
yeah.
I would be very
Yeah, I know.
reluctant to buy one
That's
of those
why,
machines personally.
yeah, that's why I wouldn't recommend people going to get them as my thing.
But remember, well, there are some machines within a few years old that will support Windows 11. So
Yeah.
it could be that they're that class of machine.
Yeah.
Are you sure that they're not
Yeah,
supporting
they're getting a
Windows?
lot of them from the federal governments and various, they're more heavy duty computers than what you buy at Best Buy kind of thing, but yeah. Okay, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Richard, you're on.
Yeah, my experience, I had bought a camera and had a printer, which I couldn't get working under Windows. When I loaded up Linux Mint, it just picked them up and they worked straight away. So people worried about drivers, it seems Linux might be more capable than Windows.
I think it works both ways, Richard. I think yeah, sometimes that happens that it will see the device and work admirably, and sometimes there are peripherals that won't work with Linux.
Yeah, and another experience, I had a friend whose machine supposedly was Windows 11 capable. She updated, and it was impossibly slow. It was 4 GB of memory, and it just would not run successfully with Windows 11.
Interesting. But it run fine on Linux, I'll bet.
Jeff Marcus, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Alan, great, outstanding presentation. What is the best imaging program?
What's the best? Oh, the best. I actually like a program called Foxclone.
Foxclone.
Foxclone. And the reason for that is because it runs off a live USB. So you don't have to create a rescue USB. All these imaging programs, when they have a rescue disk, they're running Linux anyway. And this one is running on a version of Ubuntu. And I found it really good. I've been using it for a couple of years now. And I've used it both to image and to restore.
For Windows?
Yeah, the whole system. I've restored the whole system. I've restored just the Windows partition. I've restored just the Linux partition. And it works flawlessly. So I really like it.
Thank you.
Jeff. Hello. You want to take a look at Nano Banana. And if
You want
that
to spell
doesn't
that?
make you smart, Nano, Nano, Banana. And it's by Google. AI. Huey Poplock thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread right now.
Imaging program.
Yep. Take the place of Photoshop. That's how they're billing it. So just for grins.
That may be an image.
No.
editing.
I want a disk imaging program, not a photo imaging program.
Oh, sorry. I don't do disk imaging.
Oh,
You know, but that's why you get my graphics to do. Anyway,
happy to do it.
I know that's too cool. Gene Olson, you're on.
Audio.
Well, there you are in your tent again, Al. Or it's a sheet over a table.
Gene, we're not hearing you.
Gene, you're unmuted, but there's no sound at this end.
Yes. We see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you. So I'm going to call on Brian next, and you work on your sound. No sound.
Gene, can you put your question in the chat to Judy?
Yeah. John? John's got to open up the chat again. So Jean, take a look at chat. John will open it up for you. Brian Lance, go.
Yes. There was a question about partitioning, and I believe the choice, I believe it's open source, is Parted Magic. That's PARTED Magic. And it's not only a fantastic program, you can learn just by using it. But if you do need to modify partitions, that is a go-to, and I believe it's even included on some distros.
Kennedy, have you heard of that?
Yep. Gparted is the one that I usually use, but now the internal disk program is good.
One other point, and it kind of gets into the technical weeds, is if for some reason a Linux distro doesn't recognize a drive, consider turning off things like Intel RST. I can say from experience, even Microsoft ISOs won't necessarily see a drive that has these on. Again, more for the technical, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the distro. It means that something Intel or AMD has implemented that should be set to non-RAID or just vanilla settings. And again, also great presentation. Thank you.
Cool. Jean, did you get anywhere with your sound? And you're not going to try typing in the chat box? Because if you do, I can read your question.
Jean, make sure your sound is turned up in your audio on your computer. Check and see if that bar's on the way to the end.
Yomar, would you please raise your hand so Bill can call on you? Well, nuts.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
who is saying hello?
William.
That would be me, the guy you were. William.
No, she was talking about Yomar.
Yomar, Y-O-M-A-R, and she is gone. She was there, but now she's gone.
Oh.
How sad. Well, she didn't know Bill was here because I didn't know he was here either. Okay, David, your turn.
Just a general couple of questions. Excellent presentation. I have Mint 22.1 running. I upgraded from the previous version of Mint. And if you have Zoom, it will automatically update Zoom because I've never gotten an update for Zoom, but Zoom is the most current version. So when you do an update,
You're frozen in time.
when you do the update, it updates Zoom as well. And the last update of Zoom, there was 6 of us at our last meeting that had either an audio problem or a video problem until we shut down and restarted. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, they keep changing everything and everybody has problems. John Clementi says, I have ESU, so it is rolling out.
Okay, so that sounds like it might be a staged rollout then. Certain people get it first and then more the merrier later on.
Cal in his tent in Canada has a Reddit. Oh, talk about Nano Banana. Delivers pro level edits in seconds. Thank you. I see that the ESU program allows me to back up my PC settings on my new my PC settings and applications so I can later restore those settings on my new Windows 11 computer. Have you tried that? Did that make any sense?
Probably I haven't tried it because I don't have a Windows 11 computer, but
oh, that's right.
Backing up your PC settings is basically what they mean by synchronizing your PC settings for this free version. I don't know about the applications. That must be something else.
Okay. Fred, yes. Mike Ungerman. On my Linux computer, Zoom insisted on doing an update, but I'm in a hotel and the Wi-Fi is very slow and it won't update. So I had to use the Zoom's capability from zoom.com. Well, everybody's updating stuff. Okay, Bill James. Yomar downloaded and got ready to install Windows 11 and it went wonderful, except her documents ended up in OneDrive. She does not use OneDrive and she apparently has them on her C drive or she uses another cloud backup program. What has she done wrong? How can she get it fixed? Do you just want to get in touch with her after the meeting? I'd be more than happy to give you her email address.
Yeah, I'll call her. I think she inadvertently saved those documents to OneDrive.
Okay.
But anyway, I'll talk to her.
You're too kind. Paul, it's your turn.
I just wanted to go back to you were mentioning I think it was flyby OB or something like that.
Yeah,
Flyby
like that.
flyby 11 out of box experience. It's supposed to give you more control than flyby 11, but I have not used it, so I don't know exactly what all it does.
We are having, like John said, a couple of more presentations. We're having one in October. Alan Baker from the San Jose group in Central California is doing a strict Windows 10 to Windows 11, no Linux involvement presentation, and he's going to talk about all those. In December, John Kraut is going to do Rufus, and I'm going to ask him if he'll do Rufus on Amazon. They use it there for shopping, and I think that would be fun. I looked at it. It looks quite interesting to help you shop and spend more money there. But it comes in 3 parts, and he will be the only one giving a presentation. And again, it will be ending up with a
Either it's me.
computer.
Hey, Gene, you got it working by rebooting, huh?
No, I switched to a different computer.
I'm sorry.
That always helps.
My question was, AI Companion has a, sorry, not AI Companion. I've lost some context there. The new ISU program allows me to save my settings on Windows 10, and it says I can later restore them on Windows 11. And I was wondering if you'd tried that, if you can really restore applications and settings so that you wind up with a screen that looks much like the one you had, and your applications are installed like they were before.
Bob G has an answer to that. Go ahead.
If your applications were installed through the Microsoft Store, you will restore them. If they were not restored or not installed originally through Microsoft, you'll have to reinstall them manually. But it does save all your settings and restores all your settings. And that's also one of the prerequisites of the free thing. If you use Microsoft Backup, you're eligible to swap for another year and have protection on Windows 10.
Okay. I also asked a question about the program Rufus. Rufus allows you to create a flash drive that will install Windows 11 on nearly any Windows 10 computer. And I've used it and it works well. And I wondered, you haven't mentioned that. Why not?
That might be under the the other Allens.
Yeah.
And part of that's because I think it changes some registry requirements in Windows that we might not be trying to promote to allow 11 to be installed on something that's not supposed to be installed.
Oh, we're going to get that too.
Well, I've used it on 3 different computers and had no problems. The only thing I've noticed over the years is that you don't get feature updates. You still get security updates.
Yeah, feature updates could be the problem, and the fact that the next 20, XXHX might not be permitted on those.
Yeah, no, I recognize that at some point Microsoft might make the machine not work properly, but it would work as an extension for people who would like to, try it on maybe an old machine that is not mission critical. Well, anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, Microsoft is doing that to my brand new one of those little square jobbies. It doesn't like Windows 11. in any way, shape, or form. But yes, so Alan Baker might be talking about that, but John Kraut is definitely in December talking about Rufus and all that good kind of stuff. And I know Alan's Baker's presentation has a lot of the freebie things like that Flyby hoo-ha thing. And Rufus, and he probably has 5 on one of his slides. And Paul, you're on. Are you finished, Bob?
No, I have a comment to make on the
Yeah, he just
Windows,
came back online.
on
Okay.
Windows 10. I'm a Microsoft insider, and I have a Windows 10 computer that I expected the next insider build for Windows 10 to appear some years back. And Microsoft decided in their wisdom to turn that into a Windows 11 computer. It doesn't qualify, doesn't have the proper chip, doesn't have the protection, but it's been running Windows 11 and it just received the very latest Insider Build update. So, I didn't do anything to the machine. Microsoft decided to just make it a Windows 11 computer. So it does run and it has all the new features that work perfectly well on a system that by all rights should not be beyond Windows 10.
That's because Bob is so special.
I know, lucky Bob. Anyway, Paul, you're on, and then Gail.
I just wanted to quickly mention that the Amazon Rufus is their AI search engine. It's
Right.
It's different from the install we're talking about.
Correct. I said it helps you shop. It doesn't help you make a USB drive. I know that, okay? Gail, you're on. Can you please unmute? You're gonna fall out of your chair.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, perfectly.
Good, thank you. Okay, first of all, now I have 2 questions. What was the thing that was Bob speaking, who just said his Windows 10 is working as Windows 11? Is that something we can do? I didn't understand what he said.
I didn't do that. Microsoft did.
Oh, okay. I'll call them up and see what they can do
Yeah.
for me.
Join the Insider program on your Windows 10 machine, and maybe they'll also update yours to Windows 11. I don't know, because that's what happened to mine.
He
It's
didn't hear
only
the knock
machine
on
that
the
I still
door.
have that should be running Windows 10, because all my others are Windows 11. So,
Okay. And my other question is, the reason I have the computer I have now, which is a Windows 10, is because about 5 years ago, I had to update from Windows 7 or so. And so now when buying a Windows 11, is there some feature that we can look for to be sure then when they ask us to update again, we can just know we have enough memory or we have, do you understand my question? What can we look for so we don't have to go through this again?
Gail, if it's only 5 years old, have you checked? That should update to Windows 11.
They told me, they walked me through it. I called them, they walked me through it, and they said I can't update it. If somebody knows how to go on my computer with me and walk me through it, or knows what I should look for on my computer. I'm not very good at this, so I would need guidance.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
Okay, thank
To
you.
help.
The recommendation would be to download that program that Alan told about, PC Health, and get the list. It'll tell you exactly why they say you can't update, and then we can see if there's a possibility to do that. Or, as has been pointed out, somebody could help you use the Rufus program and use the little tricks that will bypass some of those requirements and let you update to 11.
Okay, if you go to the System and Windows Updates page, it will probably tell you that it will either work or not, or at least it'll give you a link to find out. Windows Updates.
Check for updates, Windows
on the settings.
I don't even know how to find settings on a computer. Is that
And just
terrible?
search for Windows updates in the search bar.
Windows Update settings. Is that what I should look for?
Yes.
I hate to hold up the whole group because I'm very slow at this.
That's
And I'm
okay.
doing what you're saying.
There are others.
We all started someplace.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Gail,
This PC, it says this PC doesn't currently meet the minimum system requirements to run Windows 11. And it says check PC health and get, I mean, I've spent a lot, not recently, but I have spent a lot of time on this. I was confident that I can't.
Yeah, was that check PC health was the what option that John just mentioned?
Okay, check PC health and I'll see what's coming up. How do you use PC? Oh, gee, how do
Should
you
be just
use
a
it?
link.
Gail,
Yeah,
please ask Don to help you.
Don. So how do I get to Don?
Don, you're a member of PCUG, correct?
Oh, Don Beach. Yes.
Don Beach. That's what
Okay.
he does for a living. He's the president of your group. He's there to help you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And if I were there, I'd put my two non-existent 2 bits in, but I don't know
Okay,
what you're talking about.
Is there an answer to my other question? Is there some feature we can look for when buying a new PC if I have to? I mean, a new computer to get Windows 11. Is there a feature to look for so that we can kind of be guaranteed that it's a strong enough system that we won't have to update again?
There's no guarantee that you'll never have to update again. But anything you buy right now should last you 5, 6 years or more.
Yeah, Microsoft supports
anyway,
Windows
Gail,
11 for 10 years.
He's already got his next meeting, your next meeting scheduled and a flyer out on it. But during Q&A, I'll let him know that you have a question for him.
Thanks so
on
much.
11, you're having a problem. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
And we'll see if we can't just steer him in to answering your question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
That's why you attend the meetings. They're there to help. Okay. Let me go back.
See what happens. You have me turn on the chat box. Now you got to go back and check it.
Tim.
Hello.
Your turn.
I just wanted to say that Bob G, you're not alone. Back in 2020 or early 2021, Microsoft did the same thing to me, and the machine is still running 11 that I'm on right now, built in 2009.
I'm sorry. You have the strangest things going on in Chicago. What can I tell you? Good Lord.
Where do I get one of those, Tim?
Geez. You sit in your little room there surrounded by all these computers and you have, that must be the reason strange things happen to you. That is so cool. Anybody have any more questions? If not, we say thank you very much to Mr. Allen.
My pleasure.
Have a good board meeting. And we're out of here.
And we'll see him again next month. Thanks so much. Appreciate the detailed. This is it for this month because of being a Saturday safari. We're off next week, and don't forget that we'll be back though in September with 3 Wednesday workshops. So join us for that. And that's September, and then October for 3, and then November. Just a heads up, we'll have another Saturday safari, which will include our annual meeting. We always like everybody to join in to find out what's going on with the club and everything in your clubs.
And please, John and I both say, please, on bended knee we will get. But then again, Judy won't be able to get back up, but that's okay. We need people to give presentations. Come on, you guys. Is Skalka still here? I was going to give him a bad time. He's retired now. And
Yeah, he's there.
He is. Okay, Greg Skulka, I know you're just dying to give a presentation, and you could do that on a Wednesday workshop because you don't have to go to work anymore. So that would, because your presentations were always really cool and very different, and unless you stole everything from work, you wouldn't have to create anything new. But think of poor John and me. In the coming days, he's gonna have to give 2 presentations. And I have them right here on my paper. And I've checked the boxes in red, which means it's drop dead no matter what. But we do need some presentations. We need some people to volunteer. I went to a meeting the other day, an AI meeting. I love AI. And but one of the attendees said he was going to go to a meeting and give this presentation. And he no more got that out of his mouth, and I stepped all over his tongue and said, I bet you would just love to give that at a Wednesday workshop. And before he could even think about it, he said, okay, I will. I about fell out of my chair. That's what I want from you guys. Okay? You have to give reasons to your group. Joel is giving us a presentation. He has already given it to his group. So he's, got it done. Alan already gave this presentation to his group. So you have it already. You know what to say before you even get to that bullet point, the next one. Okay? So think about it. John and I would sort of, so to speak, be forever in your debt.
So thanks everybody for attending today. Have a good end of August and Labor Day. Have a safe Labor Day weekend.